Hey, Raindrops. Yes, on today's episode of Reality with the King, oh my loves, I have back y'all favorite. He's my favorite. When we did a recap of Jersey a few weeks ago, oh honey bunnies, we broke the internet. This man gives so many amazing views on all the shows we love. But today, we are going to talk about part 3 of the Real Housewives of New Jersey reunion. I have lots to say, and you know he does too. Welcome, David, from Behind the Velvet Rope podcast.
Oh my gosh, Carlos. What is going on?
You know what isn't going on? So let's just get right into it because I already know how me and you operate. I need to know from you, based on part 3 reunion. Let me back up a bit. Based on part 1, 2, and 3. Let's just dive right into it. We started this season really saying this is Melissa's last season. It's her last season. She has to go. If you have to choose between Melissa and Teresa, you're going to choose Teresa. Based upon what we just watched, do you still think Melissa time is up?
Here is what I think. Now, this has nothing to do, Carlos is already smiling. This has nothing to do with the fact that Melissa and I just got into a public smackdown after
she was inform our Raindrops. What happened?
So Raindrops. Listen, Miss Gorga is not thrilled. Listen, she wasn't thrilled with the fact that I had Jacqueline Lorita on the podcast, but the fact that I had Juicy Joe on the podcast and Juicy Joe, listen, you know how when things get picked up, they get picked up and the headline is not exactly what they say, but the headline went viral around the whole world that Juicy Joe said that Melissa called the feds, and that was on my podcast. So Melissa did have a few choice words for me on her show. And of course, then I on my show had to respond to Miss Gorga, and my response wasn't so pleasant. I'm going to be honest with you. There's a lot of words I used.
What did she say about you that wasn't so nice first?
Well, here's the thing. First of all, which is what makes her look so stupid. She tried to act like, first of all, she said Teresa basically asked Juicy to do any random podcast that he can find, because on the reunion, Teresa said, you guys were involved in calling the feds. So she said to back up Teresa's claims, Teresa said to Juicy, none of this is true, but this is what she said, go do any podcast. Then Melissa is saying he found some random podcast. Now she goes on to describe my history of she's like this guy, as if she doesn't know me, which just makes her look so stupid because everybody listening, Melissa, knows it's my podcast. All of these people, more people listen to my podcast than her podcast. So everyone, but here's the thing. She goes through and then says things like, so let me tell you, this guy, let me tell you about him. He's a fan. So now she goes through and she's talking about 6 to 7 years ago. Now, she refers to the fact that I used to go to meet and greets with her literally like 7 years ago. And then she says, and by the way, I have receipts. Now, I would like to take a minute to address a few things since you brought it up and now got me.
Go right ahead, baby. We are an avid listener. Yes.
Okay, so Raindrops, let's pull up the chairs closely, girls and boys. Here is the thing. The word receipts refers to someone who is about to deny something. Unlike Melissa Gorga, I do not deny anything in my past. So when she says she wasn't a stripper at Lookers, and I have more on the podcast coming on that very soon. When she says she didn't get a nose job, when she says all these things she didn't do, and we know that she did them, we need receipts. When you say she says, I have text messages and emails between me and him that shows he was a fan. When she says she has receipts, you don't need receipts, Melissa, because I'm not denying any of this. You put it all out, girl. I admit to it. So the use of the word receipts, unfortunately, she needs a dictionary because she's using that word incorrectly. But the thing is, Melissa is referring to 7 years ago. So let's go back. I mean, she's referring to when Carlos was an assistant producer just starting out. She's referring to before Andy Cohen had 2 children, before Erica Jane divorced Tom, before we knew what Scandal was, and before we knew that Raquel Leviss even existed in the world. She's referring to a time when Kim and Croy were happy, when Bethany Frankel was on our TVs. She's referring to a time before we even knew who Margaret Josephs was. So to reference the fact that I'm a fan, and Juicy is doing a fans podcast because 7 to 10 years ago, I was a fan at a meet and greet with her. Okay, that is a true statement of my life 8 years ago. And now I have a top Bravo podcast. So for everyone out there,
congratulations.
Thank you. So, I mean, I'm just asking, are there any raindrops out there who are the principal of the school now, who were the substitute teacher 7 years ago? Is there anyone who's the head of nursing who stabbed the patient on the first day with the IV and almost got fired? Is there someone who's now in their first year of residency who almost failed out of medical school? I can go on all day. Why is Melissa referring to my point in life 7 years ago? That has nothing to do with the fact that I have a top Bravo podcast. So that's right there a problem with her argument and the use of the word receipts. She then just goes on and on and on. So today on my episode, actually, what is today, June 16th? Today, I respond everything I pretty much just said, but I really wasn't as nice. There's a lot of words that came out of my mouth that your raindrops may not be.
Well, we're going to listen, honey. We're going to listen to it. And listen, this is what I have to say about the word fan. Since when did being a fan means a negative connotation? I'm a fan of David. Before me and David met and became friends, I was a huge fan and still am of his podcast. It's okay to be a fan. And Melissa, I don't dislike Melissa, but Melissa, you are a fan of the Jersey Housewives, which is why you slid in my DMs on Facebook. So I don't understand anymore why calling someone a fan means negative. Our fans are subscribers to our podcast. Our fans are watching our shows and your show. I'm a fan of Bravo and the shows that I used to produce and don't produce. We got to stop doing that. So I agree with you in the sense of we can't be using these trigger words as if it's a diss. It's not a diss to be a fan. If that's the case, diss me, because I'm a fan of David. I'm a fan of the show. I'm a fan of everybody's, and it's okay. I don't like that.
No. And the thing is, and I say this all the time, and I truly mean this from the bottom of my heart, every fan of mine, every listener to the Behind the Velvet Rope podcast, not only is there no diss, I like you more than my friends. There's nobody I like more. Paris Hilton says she loves her little Hiltons, and that's how I am. My listeners, I mean, please be, and I agree, I'm a fan, but yes, I agree with that. And now I also did point out that I have, even with this reference to me, I did not listen to Melissa's podcast. So I don't know who's a fan of who, not that it's a bad word. I mean, she does pay for my Patreon, as I made clear here the last time I was here.
People have said, and you provided receipts, by the way, but continue.
I provided receipts, and someone even said to me, how do you know that's her? Well, since she referenced these emails between us and these texts between us, back when Melissa and I used to email and DM, I have Melissa Gorga's email. So it's not just that it says, here are the people that joined your Patreon, Melissa Gorga. You have to put your credit card and email in, and it says, so it's the exact. So if Melissa really wants to go there, we can do a screenshot of when I used it. So I please, Melissa, release the receipts, because the email is the same and you pay your $14 a month. And by the way, Carlos, when you're on my Patreon and now you quit because I blasted you out to the world, it's going to say people that canceled their membership this month. So Melissa, if you want to stop paying your $14 and your name comes up, now I'm going to put you on blast because you obviously quit, because you obviously listen to every word I've said. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation for you, girl.
Oh! And there you have it, ladies, gentlemen, and they. Okay.
Not that I'm bitter. I'm not bitter. And listen.
No, you're not. No way.
I can separate, but listen, I can separate the two. So to answer your question of who, we did start out the season saying that, yes, here's the thing. Based on the reunion, if I'm going to take a step back, who do I think won the reunion, quote unquote, between Teresa and Melissa? I think Melissa. I mean, she had a great reunion. I think she was cool. I think she was calm. I think she was collected. I think she had good arguments. I do think Teresa, I mean, I don't even know if she said anything. You know what, though, Carlos?
What?
To answer your question, none of that matters. It don't matter. It don't matter. I don't think this was just a waste of everyone's time, this reunion, because at the end of the day, I stand by, you are not going to fire Teresa Giudice, however you want to say it. You hate her. You love her. Louis is a violation. This is a waste of everyone's time and energy. Melissa had a better reunion than Teresa. The MVP for me of the reunion is Teresa, because she sat there saying to herself, none of this matters. I will never see you guys again. And
yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, no, I agree with you in this sense. And I'm going to give my final thoughts towards the end of the episode. But what I will say right now, because I want to get into the specifics of part 3 reunion,
because I have something else to say afterwards too.
Yeah, I agree with you that I thought Melissa did a great job this reunion. And I said to myself, it's because she stopped trying to be this likable person. I don't think Melissa is inherently likable. I don't think she's inherently genuine. And that's okay. There's tons of housewives who aren't that way that we love, you know. And I felt like in this reunion, it's like finally we get to see the real Melissa. She didn't care about salvaging this relationship. She didn't care to say like, no, you know, I love you, peace, love, and rainbows. I felt like she said all gloves are off, our bets are off, and let's just go there. And I also agree with you that it doesn't mean her performance determines her position right now, because it's bigger than that. It's much bigger it's much bigger than you finally, after over 10 years, you finally performed well at a reunion. Because prior to that, which is why she's always been second seat or third seat, sometimes first, Teresa has never left her position after season 2 of having first seat. So we have to look at the longevity of it. And Teresa, at the end of the day, you're right. She said there like, I just don't care anymore. I have nothing to give. I'm going to sit here and just know that I don't have to see you again. And I appreciate that effort.
Yeah. And so when I say this, because listen, again, I'm a Gemini. I really can separate my personal feelings from what is the reality. So people are like, oh, you're a tree hugger. You hate Melissa. I mean, I don't like Melissa, but I'm not a tree hugger. I'm not, but it doesn't matter. And so here's what I think. The two things, I think that scene with Andy Cohen, like in the third part where it was like they were backstage and he's like, come on, let's just go get this done. That was like when you and I talk when we're not on air. Like we're on air, we're being very natural now. But when you talk, it's like behind the scenes, it's so subtle. That was the like, let's just please finish this. Let's just get this over with. Come on, girl. It's like, that's like an old family member that it was so telling to me. I mean, look, no, he didn't say they're not going to be here. And I don't even think he really knows, but it's the subtlety that I'm like, this is how you talk to someone that's clearly going to be here. And it's so clear. And don't get me wrong. I do think, and we'll get to who else is going to be fired and everything. I think they want to keep Melissa. Why wouldn't you want to keep Melissa and Gia Gorga?
Absolutely. Listen, I will go on record saying, I believe they love Melissa and Gia Gorga. I think they love Gia Gorga more, but I think this, if it wasn't for Gia Gorga, I think Melissa would have been fired years ago.
Yes. Yes and yes. But yes and yes. And so and by the way, here's what I say to people, because people are like, you're wrong. Louis is so, Louis isn't, we can get into Louis. That's a whole other thing we're going to get. But here's the thing. Let's just take a lot of drugs and go into an alternate universe here, people. Let me just, for devil's advocate, agree with everyone. Let's say that, okay, fine. You think Teresa and Louis are going to go? Let's pretend that. Now what? We got rid of Teresa, and next season, the New Jersey Housewives, it's going to be called The Real Housewives of New Jersey, is going to come back, and the number one OG on the show is going to be Melissa. And there's Margaret, and this whole show is going to be centered around Melissa. Let's just really think of what people are saying when they say Teresa's going to go. Think about it, there's zero, you're making your face, that there is 0% chance that is going to happen. Zero. It's not going to happen.
You have a better chance of seeing Anderson Cooper host the reunion show than for Melissa to ever be the force multiplier, the queen bee, the face of Real Housewives of New Jersey. It's not going to happen. And again, I said this once and I'll say it over and over. At one point in time, Melissa was fantastic for the show. She honestly was. But let's be very clear. It was courtesy of her storyline being with Teresa. If you subtract Teresa from Melissa's story, and I'm just being very honest here, and I have receipts to back it up, and the receipts are the seasons. Melissa has never had an A story that had any weight. The only thing she has ever given up is, I'm looking for my lost long sister. Girl, bye. I want to have a baby. Girl, please. It's these storylines that you've seen be recycled across all franchises, across all reality shows, including 90 Days Fiancé or 60 Days In. It's the same shit. And if it was real, you would have produced a sister. You would have produced a baby. The only thing Melissa's capable of producing is herself when it comes to Teresa's storyline. So because of that, you're not going to see the network, in my opinion, get rid of Teresa and have the show be about Melissa being the queen bee with Margaret and Jennifer Aiden and Dolores. Are you guys smoking that? Yeah.
Some people are, because people and like, I understand that you want that. I understand all the people that don't like Teresa, but I have no emotions. I'm completely dead inside. I just deal with the facts here, people. These are just facts. So, I mean, it's just, you got to start facing reality, guys. It's like, you just got to hit a wall or something and like wake yourselves up, throw cold water on yourselves. This is just real. This is reality of what's going to happen.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. The reality of the Part 3 reunion, one of the bigger accusations, and there's several to talk about, David, this whole accusation of Gia, another child, yes, over the age of 18, but a child nonetheless, being accused of telling Uncle Joe Gorga that he could do better than Melissa. So Joe Gorga revealed that Teresa called Gia denied it, and Teresa left the scene of the crime because she was so emotionally hurt by it. What did you think about all of that? And do you think Joe Gorga is telling the truth, or he's lying, or should he have said anything at all?
This one's tough, right? Like, I just can't, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I can't see Gia saying that. Can you?
See, this the thing. Okay, so obviously I've known Gia since she was a little girl doing pageants. And one thing I will say about Gia, and this is coming from somebody who has known her since she was a child, but also somebody who has watched her grow up to be an adult woman. Gia, from what I've seen and what I know, she has no problem copying to stuff. She's very direct. She's her mother's child. She's very much like, we've seen Gia check her uncle on camera. We've seen Gia shade her aunt in the sense of like, I don't want to talk to you. Like, we don't have a relationship. And again, y'all can call me stupid and it's fine. I don't think she said it. What I think happened, I think Joe Gorga, and this what makes me so mad at Joe Gorga, because at the end of the day, you are a man. You're a man. And you have to stand up as a man and not involve your niece/goddaughter in the mess between your wife and your sister. These are grown adults. They both signed up to be on the show. Let them fight it out, and you're going to choose your wife, and that's your prerogative, and that's fine. But the fact that you are so thirsty to make your sister and her family look bad, that you would involve your goddaughter/niece into the mess. And I think Teresa's emotional reaction had to do that. My brother would stop at nothing. He would use me, and I'm used to that. He'll use my ex-husband, Joe. I'm used to that. He's now using Louis. fine. And I'm not saying Louis is like this perfect person. We'll get to that later. But I think Teresa drew the line with, you won't stop at my child?
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, look, when you are dating someone, for 9 months and now you went ring shopping and you come home and you tell the family, I'm about to propose to this person, that's when you're like, listen, I have to stand up here because you're going to walk down the aisle, plan a wedding, hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions. And you could do better, right? You can do better. I think you're barely speaking to these people at this point. You mean to tell me out of nowhere, Gia decides to have a heart-to-heart and say, like, your wife of how many years, 20 years, whatever it is, I mean, you can do better, leave her. I mean, that is just a strange thing to say with 3 children and this far in. It just, you don't say it, right? You don't.
I agree with you.
You say it, the first date, the third date, when you're meeting the parents and before you propose. Not now. So it's weird. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And the fact that your goddaughter / niece called you to say, Uncle Joe, do the right thing. This is your sister. And because, in my opinion, Joe allegedly just wants to make good TV at anyone's expense, I strongly fundamentally believe that he wanted to make good TV at the expense of this, because him not showing up to the wedding because of something they told you before filming even commenced, you didn't care about it then. So why all of a sudden, 48 hours before the wedding, you're not showing up, and then you're posting on your Instagram the day of the wedding, oh, hanging out with real family. Like, dude, be a man. Be a man and stand up to do the right thing for your sister.
Honey, Josefina Gorga is the most dramatic housewife in possibly the history of housewives. Okay. Josefina Gorga, I believe, is a toxic, dramatic person. And to be honest with you, I mean, look, Teresa and Melissa hate each other, but I mean, I blame Josefina more than Melissa.
I can't take you calling him Joseph, but sorry, I gotta stop you. When I say to you, David, I want to scream inside of this microphone. That is probably one of the funniest things I've heard all month. Josefina Gorga.
on the Patreon with Kim D, we call Joe Josefina and Luis is Luisa. We have Luisa Aurelias and Josefina Gorga. And now I got Kim D saying it every week on the Patreon. And like my listeners, not fans, and if they are fans, I love my fans, unlike Melissa Gorga, but my listeners now refer to Josefina as Josefina. So raindrops, if you didn't know this, Joe Gorga behind the velvet rope is only referred to as Josefina Gorga. So you're giving this person a lot of credit for standing up and doing the right thing. I say Josefina is one toxic, dramatic biatch. Oh, and you can quote me on that.
This is by far the messiest episode of Reality with the King in the history of the podcast. And guess what? I'm loving every minute of it. Oh,
and
David,
I'm just being honest. I'm just literally... I mean, I really have nothing against these people. I think it's because I know so much, like the same way you know all these little things about the Atlanta. It's just, I truly do know these things. And I don't know. I mean, and I'm holding back a lot. I mean, there's
really,
a
bitch?
lot.
This is what holding back looks like. I'm scared.
It's just, yeah. And listen, to your point, Kim has been saying this for years, that Melissa and, like, to your point, because you say, this is the realest we've seen Melissa. This is what Kim has been saying on the podcast every week. When Teresa and Melissa made a pact way back that Teresa had no one to film with, and they said, let's make up for filming and keep our salaries. Like, look at these women have hated each other. They've never not hated each other, right? They faked it for the cameras. It was toned down. Even Andy said, thank you both, I guess, for having such a real season. This was it. This was the realest. You guys want real reality TV? This is it. And now Bravo has like their eyes are, they don't even know what to do. They haven't slept in months, the people at Bravo. PR, they don't know what to do. They ain't, but let me tell you something. Just like with bots and racism and a child getting bullied in high school, just like Beverly Hills, they were miserable. They're miserable. So Jersey is a changing, guys. It is a changing. Right?
It is, and it is, and it needs to. Listen, it needs to, in order to salvage the show and to not lose an audience. Look, we've seen Melissa versus Teresa for over 10 years. And the reason why the ratings were high for the reunion to me is because we all watch it wanting to see, like, this is the final showdown between these two, and I'm not going to miss a second of it. So I think you're right that it has to be the case. But the thing about you that you mentioned earlier is you do know everything about Jersey. And I feel like you're the Carlos King of New Jersey. Like, you know everything, all the things behind the scenes. One of the things that came out this reunion is the allegation that Margaret Joseph pays bloggers. Is that true? Allegedly.
I allegedly believe that's true. I heard, I mean, these bloggers are D-list. Nobody I would ever collaborate with, nobody you would ever collaborate with, pure D-list. So I'm not even, I mean, could I mention them? Do I know the names of some of them? You know, dads and moms and all this other crap, but I'm not even gonna, this would be a shout out. It's like when Melissa's mentioning me on her podcast and she has whatever million followers, and thank you, Melissa. I'm not even gonna give people the pleasure of bringing them onto the Carlos King Raindrop David Yontef behind the Velvet Rope platform, because it would be an elevation, honey. But yeah, no, I mean, I heard she gave this one for $500. That's it, and a Starbucks gift card. What? And just, yes. Look, the whole reason Margaret and I are not friends, the whole people think that Carlos is laughing, guys. Yes, and $500. But look, do I believe that Margaret pays bloggers? Yes, I do. I honestly and truly, because I know. And they have a 500 gift card. And by the way, I don't know if I said this on your show before. You know, I won't mention the name of the publication, but a major publication, because, you know, I work with the media and get my show out there.
Oh, no, honey, we saw you on the Hulu, Hunty, talking about the Randall scandal of it all, baby. So, no, we know that David's a household name. He was on Hulu. If you miss it, check it out. He was amazing. Continue, please.
Thank you, darling. So this publication, very big publication, said, I have to tell you, David, like, this person said, I get calls all day. Not Beverly, there's not one franchise. She's like, New Jersey, Margaret, Melissa, Aid, they all call. Put this story out about this one. I got to, all day. She's like, and this is from this is confidential. It's not like they're like, let me tell you. So imagine this, imagine say a People magazine. It's not People. I'm just giving an example that they'll get a call from Margaret. I got tea on Teresa. Let me tell you something. Hey, I know I called you an hour ago. I got something else to tell you. Hey, and I mean, then the paper has to say, well, okay, we don't just run a story. Trust me, I've gotten calls from major publications. Like, we have to fact check this from 4 reliable sources. Speak to us off the record. Is this true or not true? If I say, listen, I know for a fact this is true and here's why, that ain't good enough. They now have to call this. Yeah. So these papers, it's reputable, at least most of them. But like, if you see something on a Page 6 or a TMZ or something, it's been checked by a lot of sources. Doesn't mean it's always right, but so can you imagine like a Margaret calling all day and trying to put shit out about Teresa and then say, I mean, maybe Teresa's doing the same thing and Melissa. And so they said there's not one franchise that's that engrossed in calling us and driving us crazy than New Jersey. So yes, wow. Margaret, my belief is with certain facts that I have that Margaret pays bloggers, allegedly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've heard the same. Okay, let's get
and by the way, that's why we're not friends anymore. People think that we're not friends because I had Laura, her ex-best friend, on my podcast. That was, I think, at the end,
The final nail in the coffin for sure. Yes.
That was the nail in the coffin. But way before that, I'm not a blogger, podcaster, whatever you want to call me, that can be paid. So all season, when Margaret wanted me to put out her narrative on my podcast and be Team Melissa, Team Melissa, Team Melissa, I'm like, that's not how this Behind the Velvet Rope show works. I take it. People are like, you and Kim D are flip-floppers. Yes, we are. Each week, we provide what we have witnessed. One week I have an issue with Teresa. One week I have an issue with Melissa. Then I have an issue with Teresa again. It changes every week based on what I am hearing and what I'm watching. That's called a good thing. So when Margaret basically wanted me to be Team Melissa all season and anti-Teresa, I'm like, my duty is to my audience. That's all I care about, not to you. And that is really where our friendship, I'm like, there's nothing you can do for me. I don't need the 500. I don't need the 1,000. She never offered me money. I'm not claiming that. Right. But she wanted me to put her narrative out there. And I'm like, that's not how this works. Go on.
It gets messy. But that's the thing.
I know.
It gets messy. One of the messiest things that came out this episode, part 3 reunion of New Jersey, was the fact that Dina Manzo and her husband were mentioned. And these allegations that they fell out over business dealing. Dina Manzo has been silent over what's going on. The only thing she said was they were filming and she didn't want to be a part of it, which is believable because at the end of the day, Dina doesn't want to be a part of the show anymore. She's made that very clear. But there's still this weird fallout between these friends. What do you think about the supposed allegation that Dina Manzo's husband and Louis had a business deal that went wrong, and that is the reason why this falling out happened? Or did you hear something else?
No, I heard that. And, based on my research, and I believe that's 100% true. Look, I don't think Dina wants, I think Dina, and everyone's like, Dina said. I don't care what Dina said any more than I don't care what Andy Cohen says when he says there's no New Jersey pause. Well, New Jersey films traditionally 2 weeks after it ends. That's not happening, Andy. It's a pause. I understand you've been told by your boss's boss, who makes even more money than you, to backtrack as the face of the network. And now you have to sell books. And as you're selling your books, you're being asked about this. And I understand that there's no pause. Well, there is a pause in the sense that we're not filming and that the girls were told to have a great summer. And the girls were told have a great summer and we're not sure when we're filming again. I was told that directly.
Wow.
Now things change by the minute. So do I think that they could start filming in September? Sure. Do I think they could start filming in January? Sure. But they were told, we truly do not. It's not like, have a great summer. Here's your contracts are going out. We'll see you in September. It was like, have a great summer. They were told you can go fly wherever you want. You want to go to, on a safari in Africa, go ahead. Your cell phone doesn't work. That's fine. Enjoy. That sounds like a pause to me. That sounds like have a great summer. And then there was we don't know when we're filming. We'll have to figure this out. So that sounds like an indefinite pause, which could be a year. It could be 3 months. I don't know. It just means they got to figure this out. Believe it or not, I think the shorter the pause, the less good news it is for Melissa, because I don't know what there is to figure out. We'll get into that in a second, but there is a pause. So just like Andy could say there's no pause, but there is. Dina can say all day, of course, I don't think Dina has a problem with Teresa. I think if they saw each other, they would be cordial. Yeah. Dina does not want to be. Dina is namaste all day. Not like Teresa namaste, where she says that and then is basically storming off and slamming doors. And that is why we love you, Teresa. But Dina is truly, her podcast is about look, Dina's one of the only housewives that hasn't been behind the velvet rope. Dina probably would come on my podcast if I wanted to talk about holistic healing for an hour. But I guarantee you, her team would say, sweetheart, if you mention the word Real Housewives or Teresa, we're hanging up on the Zoom. So I don't know what the point of this talk is, but I guarantee you that. So Dina really does not want, she's not one of these housewives. Oh, I'm over it. No, she really is over it. So
absolutely,
I don't
she's
think,
over it.
Right? She doesn't even want that narrative out there. So I think she's saying this to shut it down. she has nothing against Teresa. She'll never speak out. But no, I think her and Dave from my sources are like, let's just completely distance ourselves because we have seen some things with Louis that this isn't kosher. And good luck to them. We have no harm, but we want no part of this deviousness.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I also heard, allegedly, that there is a pause, but that the pause has nothing to do with deciding whether or not they're going to choose between Melissa and Teresa, that a large part of it allegedly has to do with Louis. What we learned during this reunion was Margaret alleging that Louis reached out to her son at his job and threatened him. And she provided receipts of phone records where Louis admitted that it is my cell phone number, but I didn't do it. I am hearing that the ladies are saying they don't feel comfortable, allegedly, being around Louis, and that has to be figured out. What do you think about these accusations of Louis contacting Margaret's son and hiring private investigators to do background checks and find dirt on these housewives and their husbands?
This one is so complicated and layered.
Yes, it is.
Right? Because first of all, you have this woman, Margaret, who just lies. She just lies. So you got to start with the fact that this woman is lies. Now, people have blown up. These listeners, you viewers, you guys are so. I mean, you and I were talking before we went out. I didn't even know Nene Leakes wasn't in that. She's like, I don't recognize anything, guys. Like everyone gives. I mean, I know shit in the real world, and that's my value. But I don't notice. People are like, did you see? So people blew up Marge's receipt and they're like, well, it's like a picture of a. So people have blown that up and she held that up and are saying like, that don't look like a receipt to me. Now, I'm just putting that out there. That's what people are doing. But I mean, Louis says he never hired Bo Dietl, which... I mean, Bo Dietl has said this, so we don't, I trust Bo Dietl with my life, of course. I'm going to be hiring Mr. Dietl if I ever need anything. Let me tell you, girl, I ain't making any other calls. I mean, you want to come for me, Melissa? Guess what? But so look, this one's complicated because they're saying that you can like spoof someone, I guess, and call someone with your number on a landline. I don't know how any of this works. I mean, Louis is saying it's my number. It's just, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. This is what I want to know. Is there really a police report? Like, did Margaret really go to the police? That is what I would like to know, because I think Margaret is smarter than, I mean, you go to the police with a false claim and you're in fucking trouble.
Yeah.
Excuse my language, raindrops, but you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
so
you're so right. Go ahead. Yeah.
So she is someone who we know doesn't pay her bills. She's someone who's been sued. She's someone who has done some bad things. But I don't think Margaret is dumb enough that she would go and involve the actual authorities when she is just, then this is a lie. So I'd like to know, is there really a police report? Because if there is, I tend to then believe it. But where's the police report? Because I mean, people have now blown this up, and I don't know what that was.
Yeah, I think to your point, the Jersey fans are so invested that if there was a police report, we would have seen it on all the blogs. And I think if Margaret allegedly is somebody who pays blogs, then I think the police report, right, would have shown up if that was the case. And that's the reason why, because a lot of people are giving me shit. Like, you don't condemn Louis. You never say anything bad about him, Carlos. You always like, you're such a tree thugger, because, I call her thug. It's tree thuggers now, David. You're such a tree thugger that you won't admit that Louis is scary. And I said to them, I'm basing Louis off of what I've seen on the show, of the episodes I've seen. And I said, guys, I work in reality television. I know that things can be doctored. On one of my other shows, Love and Marriage Huntsville, David, there were accusations of the phones being tapped, because what Andy said is happening to the housewives, and including him, how these numbers appear based on, like, for example, if Melissa Gorga is calling Andy, the phone would say Melissa Gorga, but it could be a bot. And I'm saying that's true because that happened to my cast on another show. And I
Wait,
don't
say it again. Like, how does it work?
Okay, so it's called like it's a spam. Okay, so what's happening with the housewives that Andy said is all of the housewives, not just Jersey, is happening all across the franchises. Their phone would ring and the name will pop up of a particular housewife, right? And when they answer the phone, you're thinking like, oh, it's the housewife whose name I see on my cell phone. And sometimes it's not. It could be a totally different person, a fan, a scammer, anybody. And Andy has said that this has happened to him. I'm saying that is true because on one of my other shows, a cast member accused someone of tapping their phone lines and trying to find out information. But it's sort of this cross reference of like who's, calling somebody based on the name that appears. I'm saying all of that to say,
yeah,
because Margaret provided a receipt that, and listen, I'm talking as a producer. They showed Jackie Goldschneider's receipt of Jacqueline texting her. When they do that, guys, when they blow it up to the full screen, it's because they have validity that this is real. Because you don't want to get sued in case it's not. That's why they blow it up. It was a real conversation. Don't you find it interesting that in this alleged receipt that Margaret had of Louis calling her son, allegedly, they never blew up the receipt. They could have blacked out the Louis' cell phone number. So to your point, I just don't know. I don't know. If he did it, it's disgusting and he should be condemned. If he did it. Unfortunately, I just don't know.
Well, as a producer, you now have me thinking, like, why didn't they blow it up? I never thought about that. And Carlos is the producer. Why didn't they blow it up? Listen, people give me shit all the time too. They're like, I don't even know, when did this podcast become so one-sided? I'm like, it's not really one-sided. I am not a tree thugger. I'm not a tree stump. I'm not a tree hugger. Melissa has personally come for me and I had to smack the bitch down. I'm over it now. Like, one thing has nothing to do with the other. The fact that I think she is going has nothing to do with my dislike for her or my like for Teresa. I don't necessarily love Teresa. I got some issues with her too, but there is a warmth to her and a genuineness, yes, that Melissa does not possess. But I agree with you. Why didn't they blow it up? They blow everything up. They show everything ever. Why wouldn't they? I mean, that's a pretty big piece of information.
No, it is. And that's why I said to everybody, you can't. Every housewife nowadays has a receipt in a manila envelope that they got from Kinko's. It's the same. It's to the point now where receipts, like you said earlier about Melissa misusing it, I'm over the word receipts. Like, stop it. It's beginning played out and predictable. But I looked at it through the lens of a producer of, if that was the case, they blew up Jacqueline's text message. Why didn't they blow up these receipts Margaret has? And maybe it's because they could not really legally say this document looks real. Not saying it was fake, but I'm saying you always have to look at things that meets the eye. Now, the biggest question we have in this episode, David, is the future of the Real Housewives of New Jersey. I stand by my case that you're not going to have Melissa and Teresa back the same season. I don't care how great Melissa performed, and I agree with you. It was her best performance of all time. I think the writing is on the wall. Now, this is my prediction.
Tell me, because I have two predictions.
Yeah, I do believe that the network and everyone involved loves the Gorgas. And I get it because of Joe. Joe's great. Or Josephina. Okay, so there's no Jersey without Teresa. Sorry, be mad at me. Listen, I don't like saying it because I produce other shows and you never want a star to believe that the show cannot move on without her. I look at facts. They put the show on pause when she was in jail. That indicates Melissa cannot carry a show on her own. That's number one. Number two, Ramona allegedly not being asked back for RHONJ and them rebooting the entire franchise. is because they know you can't do RHONJ without Ramona. You just can't. Tamara Judge not being on OC suffered, and they brought her back after putting her on pause. We'll see how Beverly Hills is going to do, David. They're already saying it's not enough drama because Lisa Rinna is gone. I believe she'll be back too. I say all that to say those tree huggers, the thuggers, and the stumpers, they will picket at all of the offices if Teresa does not come back. And at the end of the day, creatively, you can't continue that show without Teresa. You can without Melissa. So with that being said, either one or two things is going to happen. Either they're going to give Teresa a spinoff and say, Teresa, like Heather Locklear on Melrose Place, you are a guest star on Jersey. We'll see you in big events. You can make appearances. And that way Melissa stays, or Melissa is on pause. Will Melissa be fired? No, I think she'll be put on pause for a year to see how the season progresses. And secondly, to give the Melissa versus Teresa a break.
I kind of agree with some and many. See, this is what I think. I agree with you. I just am like, it's not. And by the way, like Louis, people say liability and all of this, but there is more there. I mean, Teresa's job is not in jeopardy if she were dating a school teacher who was like quiet and by the book and a nice, humble man. She happened to hit reality TV gold. I mean, once again, Teresa is just, I mean, Bravo's thrilled with Louis. They don't care. They will have Jen shot until she was going to jail. Like, if Louis is up to no good, Bravo don't care. The day that he's whatever, and whatever illegal things, allegedly, and all this, they'll say goodbye and they'll kick his ass to the curb. But till that happens, Bravo will gladly film with him. That's all alleged and we don't even know. So Louis is not a liability to the extent that we're getting rid of Teresa. I agree with you. It's never going to happen. I do think that personally, if you put everyone's name on the whiteboard, as you know, as a producer, you take off. I mean, if anyone out there listening cares, I just ran into Jackie Goldschneider a few weeks ago. I like you, Jackie. We take Fessler and Jackie's off and we throw it in the garbage. Does anyone care? No. Sorry,
Agreed.
Jackie, you're not coming back. Then we have, I believe, actually, the next name, the third name to come off that board is Margaret. I think Margaret actually comes off before Melissa because, well, here's what I think, because we're not taking a look. This is like the Rinna situation. When this comes back, this is going to feel just like Beverly Hills, where we hear there's no drama. I actually think Bravo wants that Jersey style. So there'll be some, thugness, as you say, but we want to distance ourselves. So when it comes back from a pause, Beverly Hills is going to be like Lisa Rinna was never there. It's going to feel, so we're not coming back to tie up all these loose ends. And we're going to come back and reset the whole damn show. So they know that Margaret is associated with these paying bloggers and all these alleged things. She has this around her. And I think to change this show, if you're going to get rid of Melissa, you get rid of Margaret too. It's nothing to do with me disliking her. I just think to reset the show, if Melissa is going, Margaret also is up there. She's making what, 700-800, that what is she in her how many years? It's a big ticket. You save about $2.8 million right now by getting rid of these two people, or $2 million. I think they will get rid of Melissa, Margaret, Fessler, and Jackie and move forward with everyone else. I think if Melissa goes, Margaret is going with her. And I think I do. And then I think, and by the way, I know this for a fact. I don't know if everyone knows this, the Range House, but I know for a fact, this is a fact. This is an actual, they're interviewing right now, like New York, in New Jersey. They are truly meeting 31 to maybe 40. They're not going to say this, it's illegal, but they're interviewing women in their 30s, early 40s. Like when I say now, I mean like yesterday, last week, the interviews are happening. They're talking to people night and day and night, right now, not tomorrow, today. These interviews are happening. Now, we like tried that in New York and we didn't find anyone and we had to fire the whole cast and start over. So I'm not saying that they are on the verge of finding someone, but these interviews are happening right now. So if anyone out there lives in Jersey And they also would like really, really, really rich too. They're trying. So I believe that's the most likely case. The only other thing I can see is they get rid of everybody, give Teresa her own spinoff, and just move forward with Danielle Cabral and Rachel Fuda. And just, it's like New Jersey Housewives 2.0. But I really think that's the less likely situation.
Yeah.
And I really think Teresa stays on the show. And I think there is zero. And like, think about it. If Melissa goes and Jackie and Fessler and Margaret stays, it's still too toxic. Teresa has just said she's done with Margaret. They want this to come back and be fun. There's going to be drama. They want it.
They want drama, but they want to refresh. Yeah.
And I don't know. Margaret is just, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's going to be too combative. Like, I think it's just a chance. And by the way, her story, listen, Margaret was a great housewife. Melissa was a great housewife. It's like, what is Margaret's story going forward? Cabral, we don't know anything about her yet. Fuda, there's so much more there. We got to learn. With Margaret, I think her time is up. I really do. So I really think that's what's going to happen. That's my prediction.
Woo! Well, Raindrops, let me know. Woo! This is I don't
know. I mean, listen, I've gone so far on my show as to saying 100%. So if Melissa is on this show next season, Carlos, they are going to nail me to the cross. They are coming for me. Because I have gone so far as to say there's like 0% chance. So if Melissa is back, man, people are going to destroy, which is okay. It is what it is. But I'm going to get destroyed.
Listen, anything can happen in the land of Real Housewives, as we have seen and learned. So it's okay. It's okay. But these are some great predictions. So Raindrops, make sure you hashtag me and David at Reality with the King. And let us know about our predictions about the future of the Real Housewives of New Jersey. Do you agree with us? Disagree with us? Let us know. But David, this has been, like I said, 100% the most hilarious, messiest episode I've ever taped on Reality with the King podcast. And of course, it's because of you. Please let everyone know where they can find you, follow you, and support your top-rated, highly successful podcast.
Thank you. And I was calm today. This is like, I'm calm and everything. Bitch. But I mean, so sorry to be so messy, Raindrops. Follow me. You can listen to Behind the Velvet Rope on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at Behind Velvet Rope, or on YouTube. You can watch some videos. Carlos has been on the show many times. So follow, subscribe, and please give us a shout out. And we got to do Atlanta next, Carlos. We got to do Atlanta.
We are. I can't wait to do with you. It'll happen soon. And listen, I adore you. I love you. And I'll see you soon, my friend.
Thank you so much, darling.